morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome aboard the Max Afterburner podcast, sponsored, powered by the No Fallen Heroes Project. We have an incredibly special guest joining us today via Zoom, but she is here in spirit, the beautiful inside and out Morgan. First of all, I love the name Morgan Madonna, M&M, M squared, M2. So I just want to prove to everybody that I'm an equal opportunity guy, because this is my third Air Force person on the on my podcast. So I understand that it brings my average down, and the Air Force is barely on our side, but I'm doing my best here. So Morgan, how are you? It is so I haven't talked to you we talked, but I haven't talked to you in a while or seen you in so long.
Oh, it's been like 2 weeks though, right? Maybe it seems like a little longer.
Wait, how long? What was this, a month ago?
Oh, maybe about 3 weeks.
Oh my God, everything. It's incredible that it's only been that long, right? So yeah. Let's bring everybody up to speed. So we're going to get into Morgan and her background, her distinguished career as an Air Force Zoomie, proud mom, and a healer. And Morgan was a grant recipient of the No Fallen Heroes Foundation and joined us last 3 weeks ago down at Awaken Your Soul in Costa Rica. And we're going to dig into some of that stuff, Morgan, because I was sitting there listening to you debrief some of your stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. So give us a quick executive summary of your background, and then get into the Air Force and then separating from the Air Force, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so I joined the Air Force when I was 18. Both of my parents were military. The Army, actually, and it was my dad who was like, don't go Army.
Smart man.
I've been enlisted at 18, and I was actually a lab tech, so I did on the support side. Mm-hmm. I was in for 12 years, and I decided it just wasn't for me. It just wasn't aligning with my views at the time. Mm-hmm. I was married, so I ended up getting out and allowed my spouse at the time to transition from enlisted to an officer. And because we worked in the same field, it wouldn't mesh well. Mm-hmm. So then I did lab tech for 15 years, and then I crossed over into health and wellness. And I spent the last 2 decades in the health and wellness industry doing personal training, group training. Mm-hmm. But through the process, especially with my own kind of transformation, my own kind of interest in psychedelics and my divorce, I just knew that there's something deeper. Mm-hmm. Right? You can work out as much as you want, but if there's that root cause that we're not getting at, nothing's going to budge. And so I noticed that in a lot of my clients, where you can come and it's going to give you maybe that little boost of thing, but there's something so much deeper. Yeah. And you can't outwork substance abuse by working out. Correct. Even though it's a great tool, it just wasn't hitting. And, it wasn't hitting for me on an intellectual level with personal training, because like I said, I was more searching for truth. Mm-hmm. And spending the last 10 years psychedelics, I was like, I was a raver, so I understood kind of like where, when you're in that atmosphere around the right people, and you're taking these substances, like it brings that level of love and connectedness. Mm-hmm. And then it just opened up this whole kind of like Alice in the Wonderland rabbit hole. So then, ayahuasca started popping up, and then peyote and wachuma, and then just, going down to researching this on a very scientific level before I even delve into it. Mm-hmm. And then once I delve into it, it was, here we go.
Buckle up. Let's go back a little bit, because 12 years in the Air Force, you're kind of right there at that at decision range, right? Do you do the extra 8 and get the retirement and all that stuff, or do you bolt? What was you kind of alluded to, hey, it wasn't kind of aligning, it wasn't jibing with who you were at that moment. What were some of those particulars?
It was 8 years active. Mm-hmm. The thing is, I spent my entire career at Right Pat. Okay. And so I started there was no way to move up. I didn't want to be in Ohio. We weren't moving. Yeah. Things that happen when you're 18, 19 years old were still being held over into my head, where I was like, I'm not the same person. I'm a mom now. I'm grown up. I'm a teacher in hematology teaching students, and yet I'm still being strapped and not giving, the opportunity to grow. And so after that, I was just done.
Okay.
And when you go to right path 2, it's like a black hole. So I wasn't shifting. Nobody else was shifting. There was there's no movement.
Stagnant.
And, I'm a very outspoken person, especially when it comes to like injustices and seeing things that are like wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really had a hard time with the people that I worked with and them kind of demanding respect without earning it, especially in a leadership position, and that was really big for me because, people are going to war, and that needs to be a huge leadership. And when you're not, do as I do or do as I say, I have a real problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
So it just wasn't for me. So I actually palace chased out and went National Guard, and I was hoping that I could like finish out my career in National Guard and continue my school. But when we went to Altus, Oklahoma, and there just wasn't any part or anything where they could plug me in, and so they honorably discharged me, which I wasn't complaining.
Yeah. Well, geez.
At the time, like I said, I was married and everything was good and covered, and I was able to do the schooling and stuff. So I wasn't really too concerned with. I just wanted to get out.
Okay.
I mean, my parents even said they didn't understand how I made it past basic training.
They knew their daughter. Yeah. Oh, that's too funny.
A little bit of background, but even just being deployed during the war situation and then coming back, and I just didn't see eye to eye.
Okay.
I didn't see eye to eye with the treatments with the vets and then active duty, and I was like, this isn't for me.
Well, good for you. I mean, that's hey, if something ain't aligned with who I am, then I'm gonna pitch out. But hell, Ohio and Oklahoma. I mean, that sounds like a prison sentence, man. Who'd you piss off?
Yeah, all my career and
jeez.
So I was like, at least send me away. But it wasn't until I got out and my ex became an officer did we actually get to go to England and to all these different places.
The cool place, yeah.
Yeah, the cool places.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like, we're going to drop you in Altus, Oklahoma, which literally is like the reason why it's not remote is the placement of the gate. So if the entrance gate was like 10 miles off to the east, it would have been remote because it really was.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Welcome to the United States military, folks. Oh, never a dull moment. Okay, so let's get on and obviously you can drive as much as you want, Morgan. The call of, as you know, or as you can definitely attest to or not, the medicine calls you, right? Was it, because you kind of alluded to the whole raving thing, where did the medicine land on you? Was there some trauma? Was there life issues? Or was it more of, hey, this is fun, and then you found the more serious stuff? What was take us through that kind of journey? And then I want to step through, because you are, experienced with various medicines. Let's step through some of those, but get us to the door.
Oh, so my first experience was probably mid-20s, and I was actually going through. We had separated from my spouse at the time, and through that separation, I was trying to start over, and then my friends were like, "Oh, if you tried ecstasy," and I was like, "Well, no, I haven't," but. So when I did it with them, knowing it was in a safe place, and it really just kind of opened up a different spectrum.
Heart opener. Yeah.
That had been like trapped, and I was becoming like, oh, like this is interesting.
Yeah.
And so I was on my own for a couple months, and then I got back together with my spouse, and then he and I used it. And when we used it together, it opened up a different level of connection.
Yes. Yes.
Right, to where now I can speak what's in my heart without him judging me or him saying, like, he could just be quiet for a minute and listen. So that opened up. And so, it worked out for a little while, and then just started discovering mushrooms, but this was more out of like curiosity.
Okay.
Because a lot of the stuff, like I said, this was more, I grew up in a very strict kind of like, my parents were Army by the books, and so you still listen to the stigma about what's going on.
Sure.
But I was just doing more of the research on my own. So it literally went from like MDMA, ecstasy. Oh, now I'm going to try and do cannabis. So cannabis opened up kind of like a different level as well. And then through cannabis went from psilocybin And then I was like, well, now I really want to try DMT.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Because everybody's talking about like, let's break through. And so I'm like, what does this really mean to break through?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you're talking about somebody who, like when I was younger, kind of believed in a higher power. And then with a science background, went very, very atheist due to just the nature of science, but also, you know, the religion and all that stuff, and the propaganda. And then I was like, well, let me see what this whole breakthrough session is. So I think it was even with my experimentation with mushrooms and a little bit of DMT that I just started to really see things, not just see things myself, but it started waking stuff, like parts of myself that were numb for so long.
Wow.
And this is where people come into that. They call it a midlife crisis, but I mean, I was married for 17 years, you know, got together when I was 19, 20. So I didn't have, and became a mom when I was 21 and 22. So it was a portion that had been forgotten.
Dormant. Yeah.
Right. And so those pieces that get pushed down, you know, when you want to keep things together, so to speak.
Well, and you're living for your spouse, you're living for your boy, not you.
Yeah. And so when you start waking up to some of the, you know, you start seeing patterns, and then the patterns start kicking in, and you're like, once you see things, you can't unsee it. And that's part of when I tell people about, you know, going into these kind of medicines, you have to be very aware that this could potentially bring a wrecking ball to your life, and not in a way that you think, you know. So here I am after 17 years of seeing these patterns, like, I can't do this anymore. You know, there's a lot of bad stuff from both sides, and you can't heal when one person is just willing to do the work.
Correct.
And so it's like, I realized through my own like medicines and stuff that I learned to take my power back, and then I could change my reality.
Yes.
Like that. It may not happen like this, but that decision.
I love that you said that. The decision to do that. Once you say that to the universe, things start changing, right? So talk to us. So, you know, MDMA, heart opener, connecting. You did it in a loving environment, which is obviously critical. A little bit of cannabis and psilocybin. Tell us about DMT. What was your experience with DMT?
Well, my first session, we just found the powder. And so we didn't really, we're just like, well, let me just experiment with it. We didn't even have the right tools. So we were just trying to do it out of like a plastic bottle.
No.
It was so bad. You know, not like the real, but when you're just wanting to try it, you know,
Sure.
I was in a very safe environment where I wanted to try it. And so it really only did the, you know, a short session, but it was enough to hear the crackling, enough to just kind of let go and watch the hieroglyphs come. And then that was about it. Very short lived. I don't even think it was 10 minutes, but I remember just being like,
wow.
Like, but nothing like, it was like, oh, this is what people talk about when they say they have visions. And then, you know, it was after I made the decision through to some other, like, I should say very bad habits that were happening at the moment. Did I really start going down into using these medicines as healing? Right. So I started using them more as an like experiment, like just experimenting. Oh, let's see what happens. And then I was, how am I going to use these for healing?
Okay.
And then open that up. So after my divorce, I enrolled in a psychology course, got my bachelor's in psychology. And that's when I started being able to really open up and use my research with psychedelics and start doing that. Because I was already, you know, experimenting with mushrooms, doing my own journeys, figuring out who I was, you know, how can I heal myself? Because a lot of the stuff when you're with somebody for 17 years, you don't know what's you still.
Exactly.
You know? So what's me? What's mom? What's him? Because a lot of it was him, or a lot of it was just having to make things mend. So using that kind of to peel back the onions on that kind of situation. And then through that, I was doing, I was like, well, my capstone was, you know, how ayahuasca could, you know, potentially help veterans with PTSD. This was before I even consumed ayahuasca at the time. I just believed in it so much. And she, like I said, she had already been calling me.
Okay.
before I knew what calling was.
Yes.
You know, I was in England. My friend was like, "Oh, check out this medicine," and I was like, "Oh man!" And I was like into like the people purging and all this stuff. I was like excited about it. Where people are like, "Oh no, that looks scary."
Yeah.
But you know, in the end, it's always going to be scary when you have to confront yourself and then take responsibility for your own actions.
Yes.
You know, that can be extremely like, holy shit, like in your face. Nobody wants to do that, so it's scary. But I was like, you know what? There's some good
Sign me up.
There is some good stuff.
So talk to us. Yeah, give us a good debrief about ayahuasca, right? Because you know I've never done ayahuasca. I'm Joe Iboga and Toad, but I got to be honest with you, man. Whenever I look at the flight schedule for a medicine retreat and it builds in purge time, that gives me a little pause. Like, all right, well, half an hour for purging in here. Oh, so
the first thing that I like to tell people about purge is, I mean, they automatically think of vomit, but purge is just any way that your body is going to get rid of anything.
Energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So a snotty nose, coughing, yawning, crying,
exactly,
going to the bathroom, vomiting. But we look at it as like, when it comes to throwing up, like if you were to OD in a hospital, the first thing they were going to do is pump your stomach because that is the quickest way to get it out before your body absorbs it.
Yes.
And so that's kind of like the same thing when you go in with ayahuasca is, you know, it is going to be kind of just because it settles on your stomach a little bit different.
Okay.
But if you look at it as like dense energy that's coming up, it's the same thing. Like, I don't know if you've done combo. Combos like that, it's a true surrender. It's a true cellular detox. And the quickest way to get all of this, like when it drains your lymphatic system, it goes right into the stomach. The quickest way for it to get out is through that purge.
Okay.
And so a lot of times people don't want to purge because it's a control thing.
Exactly.
Once you kind of switch out that mentality of, listen, this purge is getting rid of all of this stagnant junk. And then it's like, oh, but it's kind of part of
let it go.
I think there's only like certain ones that you kind of vomit on, you know, or you may do that kind of purge. Because when I had my first, you know, Bufo experience, or my purge comes in the form of like crying, like a massive emotional release. And so like you talk about DMT, so Bufo is when I actually met God, my definition of God, and was able to kind of like bask in that energetic field and feel the love.
Talk us through that. So talk us through the tactics of your Bufo, like how, and then talk us through the experience. Because you and I, it sounds like we have a very experienced Bufo, similar Bufo experience.
So Bufo was actually probably, I mean, you know, besides doing a little bit of DMT, but man, I just kind of knew, because I got done with combo practitioner training. And so it was kind of like that gift, like, oh, you did 3 days of like this massive cleansing. Now we're going to do Bufo. So you go and you set up in the little, you know, space, and it felt very safe. And it was just, you know, around 15, I think it was 12 people at the time, but you inhale it and you learn to let go. But for me, people get stuck in that, not learning to let go or not being able to let go. And that's where they see the visions. But for me, it was like, you've already seen the vision, right? You already seen the pretty things. Like, we're about to get nitty gritty. And like literally was catapulted into this like massive light of vibrational energy where I just laid there and like having to go full ego because I wasn't able to like consume it all. And so at that moment when I started coming back, what it reminds me of is when people meet God, they feel that unworthiness. And I felt that unworthiness coming in because I was like, I cannot consume all of this energy, all of this love. It is so much bigger than I am.
Wow.
Inside.
Yep.
And so for me, that was my
really
come to God moment, and where it turned me into from, oh, I'm going to here now I've soaked in the creator's energy.
You were there.
Here. I felt that love. So there's no turning back. Like it's here, it's inside. It was very monumental for like my own healing. Because then I'm like, you know, that love is in me.
Wow.
Like whether nothing else lines up or what I think, it's in me. I've experienced it to be in like that type of just mind blown.
I have goosebumps right now, Morgan, because I that was my experience. It's so interesting that, you know, no two people, man, I exploded I literally went from sitting here just kind of like this to exploding into love, light, energy. I was one with whatever word you want to use, source, God. I prefer God, creator. I was one with that, whatever that is, right? And it was absolute peace. I still had an understanding of me. I still had a little I, so to speak, but I knew I was part of something of that source, God, creator, truth. And it's so funny the way you describe it, because the worst part about it was my reentry. I call it like Apollo 13. I had to leave perfection, that love that you just talked about, and I had to come back into this vessel, and it wouldn't, like you just, I couldn't squeeze it all back into me. Even though you just said all that stuff's in me, I remember trying to fit back in, and there was still shame or regret or trauma or whatever. And I talk about a purge. I remember the first half of this, I screamed last time I yelled like that was when my father passed away. And there was still, a little. And I remember the beginning of the second scream, and then I opened my eyes and I had flipped in the bed. That was my purge. I mean, I went from, it was absolute insanity, but I felt forever, right? I felt infinity, and I felt love. It was the most incredible experience. And it sounds like you and I had a similar experience. How long were you in it, so to speak? How long was yours?
Man, I think I was there probably a good 25 minutes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And I don't, I just remember my catapult, and I just remember hey, I'm supposed to be seeing these visions.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the colorful stuff, but it was like,
nope.
No, I'm going to take you to me. I'm going to take you to God.
Yep.
This was my intention, but that was also my intention going in. I know I'm going to meet God.
Yeah.
I just knew it.
Good for you.
I don't know how I knew it, but it was just an intention that came to me because it was something that I felt that knowing it was time.
Morgan, I'm so glad we debriefed this, because I feel so you've helped in my integration right now, in my healing, because I'm still, and I'll be on until my last breath, when I think that will happen again, that experience, I'm still integrating, right? Because that was so powerful, and I'm glad you're saying all this, because you're helping me out, because I felt you can't compare journeys. First of all, everybody listening or watching, don't ever compare journeys. But I remember, to your point, a lot of people who have done Bufo going, oh, I saw this and I saw that. And I'm like, dude, I was like in the Millennium Falcon going to hyperspace. All I saw was me and then white. And I was just with God. And it was peace. Ain't no fractals or eagles flying around. It was white and source and love. It was perfection. So I'm so glad you're like, I didn't see shit. It was more of a feeling. I mean, the visions were gone. It was white or energy or whatever. I can't even describe it, but I'm so glad we had this. You didn't tell me this in Costa Rica. I'm glad you saved this for this podcast, because I feel so much better now.
Yeah, I don't really think. I think I'm also still trying to put language in my experience, and that's kind of one of my lifetime goals, is to be able to language what it is that we are experiencing.
Yep.
Because it is very much hard to.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't. I didn't see a figure. It was nothing like that. It was just. I felt enveloped in this huge. And I'm going to call it masculine energy, because I've done enough to where I can kind of feel it. But it was a godly, masculine energy and low. And I felt protected, and I felt loved. And and it wasn't when I came out of it. And every time I come out of my Bufo experience, it just I purge out shame and frustration, not just on an individual level, but also on a collective level. So when I came out, and I felt that shame, and I felt the hurt, and I felt the hurt of the people that I was with. Did you feel
any physical differences for a while after anything like this? And I'll tell you why I ask in a second, but was there any, aside from your 20 minutes there, anything from that experience stick with you?
My leg was twitching, at that point. And that's what Bufo kind of does, is it goes in and kind of releases some of that stagnant energy. So I did have a couple of twitch, but it was just a lightness. It was a very light feeling. And then the afterglow of Bufo
Yes.
is just.
Well, here's why.
I don't know what happened, but I can tell you, I like walked out there probably like 20 years younger.
Yeah.
Just the amount of like
lightness.
That comfortability and to get rid of whatever that was in there
you feel brand new, folks. It literally is like a clean piece of paper. The reason I ask is because I have horrific tinnitus. The vision in my right eye was going, and I have just horrible neck and back pain from flying fighter jets for 15 years. I'm telling you, Morgan, for a good year, everything was better. Everything. The pain in my back the tinnitus is still there, but I can deal with it. The vision in my right eye cleared up. And it was so cool because my guide, Cynthia, she's like, of course that happened. And I'm like, what do you mean, of course? She's like, you were in the presence of God. You were in the presence of perfection. Everything kind of got reset. She's like, don't you remember Jesus? You know, he put mud on this girl's eyes and the blind could see. Jesus could heal with his touch. She's like, you were in the presence of God. I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome. I felt, because I felt so good after that for so long. That's why I was just asking. I was wondering if anybody else had any physical stuff. But all right, now let's get to grandmother or grandfather, whichever direction you want to go. So talk us through Iboga and how it called, and then give us your debrief of your two sitting with the medicine twice in Costa Rica. That's a good beginning right there. That was a happy sigh. And you look so much lighter, by the way. It's so fun for me to meet everybody at that hotel, right? And go, they have no idea what they're in for. And everybody's nervous and looks whatever, but you look like a completely different human being, 4 weeks later? I just want to say that. So talk us through it.
Well, I mean, Iboga, I call her she. She's very feminine.
Grandmother Iboga, okay.
Ayahuasca brought me my grandmother. So grandmother ayahuasca was more like a grandmother figure. I was able to do the ancestral purging and then meet my grandmother. But Iboga was just the first night. I had 4 spoons and I was like, oh, I'm doing this. I was nervous going into this, like all nervousness, but mine was more like listening to other people's nervousness.
Oh, okay.
Everybody was telling you to go into, it's going to be this strict follower. It's going to be the hardest trip you've ever done. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm up for it.
I got it.
Putting myself in discomfort. I work out. I love to put myself in extreme situations just because I know that there's a level of healing and growth, and I'm all about growth. So I'm like, okay. So my biggest thing was make sure you check my heart. That was the big thing. I don't have heart conditions, but you hear about this. And so I went into it. And then, the first night after 4, I laid down and I just was at peace. And the way that I can explain the feeling is after a whole night of rolling, you go to lay down and it's really hard to sleep. You're very present, but you're in something, you can't sleep.
Yeah, the afterglow.
Yeah, and so I was just laying there this is nice. This is amazing, right? And just listening to the music, and the music didn't really bother me. And so I was like, okay. And so I was like, well, how can I just kind of lean back and let whatever happen? And then during the process, all of these faces, just massive face dump. And every face that I've seen in this lifetime, all these lifetimes, faces on, and it was really funny because it was even faces from movies. And so there was a segment where it's it could be very scary to somebody, but something coming with big teeth, and then it transferred into this clown, and then went into this other scary, and I was like, she's just really dumping everything out of my brain. And I could not have been more thankful just to have it dumped, and to have kind of going into this as a fresh take. And so I was like, yes, this is amazing. This was the easiest experience I've ever had in my life. I was I would do this over and over again. So I was like, okay. So that was, and then we went back, and I slept, in and out, kind of bringing up childhood memories. But
during the gray day, you're talking.
Yeah, the recovery days. So kind of like in and out of it. Like I said, it reminded me of like a rolling hangover, but you're able to just kind of process some stuff where I was like, okay, I don't know where these faces came from. I just know that I almost kind of equated to just every time you do something the first time, I feel like it's like a calibration. Like they're
Yes.
calibrating you to their conscious level. They're cleaning you out on
Yes.
that first day so they can really get into what you have no idea is hidden. And I was like, oh, now I'm pumped about the second one. And then I remember Troy's like, okay, and I was like,
well, let's go before we get to the second time, because you sit with the medicine twice at Awaken. Talk to us tactically. The 4 scoops, man. Talk through the tactics of it so people get an understanding of it.
So in the pre-session with Troy, he's like, well, you've done a lot of this before, so I'm going to start you off with 2 scoops. And I'm like, oh, God. Whoa, okay. Well, look, I trust this man.
Yeah.
Right? I trust him.
Incredible human being. I love Troy.
I love that he has a brain like mine where it's science and
brilliant.
Brings it to spirituality, like he just has it. So I was like, okay,
yes,
look, I'm so willing to surrender. I knew that I wanted to go in, and during the process of coming into Iboga was a lot of grief around my best friend that had committed suicide 13 years ago. So I wasn't expecting this to come up, but during the questions and stuff, it came up. So I told him, I think there's something that may be there. And he had mentioned, we'll take you to journeys to the moon. And so I was expecting to go to the moon, but he was like, we're going to give you 2 scoops. And I was like, okay. So go around the fire, just phenomenal, right? It was so beautiful to be able just to sit and then to see them and then
under the stars and
look, the Milky Way galaxy was going. So you're like, oh man, this is phenomenal.
This is tight.
This is my geek. This is my shit. You get your face painted and
I'm in it.
I'm in it. Like I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And and then they go around and they start talking, and he gives a little bit of the heritage and the history, and then you get another one, and I'm like, okay, well, I can do this. I didn't think it tasted bad, which is
what?
Funny, it's going to taste bad, and I was like, well, I don't think this tastes bad at all. But I was like that with all my other medicines.
Okay.
It was like molasses.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit. So I was like, okay, this isn't bad. And then we go to lay
Here's the narrator Whiz. It tasted awful. But Morgan enjoyed it, so there's that. So pick one of them.
Yeah. Apparently, I don't know, if these medicines and stuff, if it doesn't taste, I guess, you kind of like in that medicine woman, medicine man path.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, oh, this isn't bad. I can, okay.
Yeah. I loved watching you, man. You were in it. I'm like, oh my God, man. I was freaking terrified. She's scooping it up and in it. That was fantastic.
Yeah. And then he comes around, I think it's probably, a little bit later, but I don't know. Time is just kind of not there.
Yeah.
And then I remember just being in this child's pose for hours.
When did it start? How long did you, from scoop number 1 to, I need to go lay down type of thing? When did you start saying the medicine's starting to work? Or what were some of the onset?
I actually felt it more when I laid down.
When you laid down, yeah. That's what he said too. Troy's like, you can sit at the fire all night, but it's once you put your eye shades on and lay down, that's when you get airborne.
Yeah.
So
once I kind of flipped the switch, and I was like, let me just lay down and see. And then the faces just started coming, and I was like, well, I don't want to focus too much on these faces because I don't want it to hit something that I don't want to see.
Keep going.
And I'm like, look, she's jumping you for something. I've already seen you one time. I don't need to do this again. So bye.
Okay.
The eye mask was on, and he's like, you want to come take another scoop? And I just remember being like, okay. And I didn't lift my eye mask up, but I felt like this baby bird. And so, you go in the second scoop, and then I was kind of in it again, more at peace with the first one. Like, man, I can work with Iboga, this wonderful, beautiful spirit that's just bringing me this kind of peace. And that was my first night. So
okay, all right. So grade A, everybody kind of met for dinner and stuff. Take us through. Let's dig into round 2 because I think there's a lot to unpack here. So take us through the second sitting with Iboga.
Well, the second one, I was pumped. at first I was like, what I wanted to have kind of more of like, a more narrow intention going into this one. And so I went in the intention with, asking her to kind of unzip my heart, because I knew going into that, my heart had been guarded. There's still some stuff of processing, but I knew, like I said, stuff coming up with my friend passing, I knew there was something there, whether that be just a little bit of anger, a little bit of shame, a little bit of not being able to save her was there, so to go in and just ask Iboga, like, just unzip my heart. I'm willing to see whatever it is. I'm open to that. And so same things, I'm going to start you off with 2 scoops. And I was like, okay. And so we go around the fire, I get my 2 scoops, and it was like, boom, you're in it.
Just 2.
You're in it. Just 2.
Wow.
And so I'm sitting there, and I curl up in the chair, and somebody had made the funny comment about having the purge buckets under the chair. Like, well, nobody's purged around the fire. And I was like, they give me another one, I'm about to fucking purge. I'm in it. No, everybody was like, chill.
It's the first time for everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I looked at Nicole and I was like, something, because I was sitting here and I was like, okay, I just need to sit here and let him pass around the 3rd scoop. But she was like, no, if you take that scoop, you're going to purge.
Go.
You're wasting nothing.
Yeah.
And I was like,
that's all I needed to hear. I'm out.
Right. I'm always about to start low, go slow. She gives you what you need. I'm not a hero like that.
Correct.
So I looked at Nicole, I was like, I need to go lay down. And she was like, okay. So as soon as I laid down, I put my eye mask on, my body went into a very kind of different vibration. And being able to reflect now, she was processing for me to astral project. Like she was gearing me up to go on my journey to the moon. And so finally, like, just kind of processing, Joe comes over, and she was there for a very long time, that poor girl. I mean, to the point where she had to bring up a mattress.
Oh, she's her and Troy, man, what an incredible, that gifts from God.
She's like, okay, well, you want to go on a journey? I said, oh yeah, because I was being nauseous. There's something in that nauseous. I was holding on to some kind of grief. So she's like, pick, what's coming up for you. And so right away it was like my 13-year-old self. And so my grandmother passed when I was 10. And during my ayahuasca journey, I found out that the moment that she passed is when I didn't feel safe. I still had my family, but there was a different level of connectiveness with my upbringing and my parents and the whole situation of growing up. Like, there was just different. So I didn't feel safe. And then I was able to process that. So at the age of 13, I was able to get on this horse, this little Pegasus, go up into the moon, play on the moon sand. And all I can think about is like, am I thinking this, or is this really happening? Like, am I in my left brain or my right brain? So I'm like, well, let's just go with it. Right. So it's all kind of like in 3D. This was almost like a cartoon playing in front of me. So she was, who do you want to call in? Well, automatically I would call on my grandmother, because at the age of 13, she'd already passed. This was obviously a significant age for me to see her. So I was able to call her in and see her and feel her and hear her and give her hugs and not wanting to let go. But at the age of that time, it was so healing for my inner child to be able to see my grandmother, because I didn't get to say goodbye to her, so abrupt. So to be able to have that amount of healing. And then, she's like, okay, well, she had to go back, and then you took the little girl and you put her in the heart. And then Joe's like, okay, anybody else you want to call in? And I was like, oh shit.
Here we go.
Here it goes. It goes. And so I called in my best friend. I called in Sarah. And the amount of healing, I was just able to hold her hand. Because when she had, when she was going through her trauma, she wrote me a note right before she committed suicide. And it was, you can't hold my hand forever. And I didn't understand how much I held on to so much anger behind that, because I was like, no, like, I'm your friend.
Yeah. Yes, I can. Yeah.
Like, yes, I can. Why hold your hand as long as it takes?
Oh.
You know, this is what I'm here for. And so to be able to talk to her and to understand why she left, and, you know, God, just to hear her voice and hold the embrace, and then to hold her hand, and like, it was just an incredible amount of healing, to where I can talk about it and be able to say, I'm at peace now with why she did what she did. I fully understand her situation, why that was her path. You know, and anybody that gets their child taken away and being all this other stuff while the husband manipulates, it's very hard for a mother to see past the light of not, you know, when am I going to see my kid? Is he going to let me see her? And so understanding that she did it because she did it to protect, and that was how she was going to protect and see. I mean, I fully understood. So it was a massive amount of healing.
Wow.
That took place with just being able to grieve her in the proper way that I didn't get to grieve her.
Oh,
you know,
my
she
God.
wanted to be strong. You know, I went to the funeral and I wanted to be so strong for her mom and for her family. That
Sure.
I didn't feel like, maybe because we'd only been friends for 2 to 3 years, that I didn't feel like I was able, that I was deserving to grieve her on that kind of level. And we had this kind of different connection. So to be able to fully like talk to her and see her again was incredible. And then once you cry all this out, like your stomach pain is gone. Like that area in your body is just, it's just gone. So she had to leave. And then we took another journey back home into, I think, my 7-year-old self. And it was in a different location. I was at Fort Hood at the time because I was a military brat who moved. So this was like a different location. And to be able to stand in front of my 7-year-old self and show her who I've become, and able to show her, like, standing in my Amazonian Wonder Woman costume from the movie and showing her, this is what you're going to be one day. Like, it's going to be okay.
Wow.
You know, it may be hard right now where you're at, you know, being the oldest of 4, I'm not getting the attention. Do I feel this love? I don't have this expected fatherly love that I was expecting to get, because I felt like I was yelled at all the time, you know. But to be able to bring in that and to play in the outside, and it was just so, I didn't even know I had to go back to that 7-year-old little girl and be like, it's gonna be okay, you know. Until she brought it up, and even that coming back, I was like, man, I mean, I'm good.
Wow.
Straight, you know. And I think there was one point where I was trying to, I think I saw my 20-year-old self, and it was, I think it was right before I deployed. You know, I woke up my 20-year-old self in my room, and I just remember being so shocked, you know, but saying, you're going to make it after this. It's going to be okay. You know, you don't think about that stuff when you're 20, but to come back and see all of my inner children and put them in my heart, and they're there. So when I need that love, I know that it's there.
You can tap into it.
And then she was like, well, let's go ahead and let's ask some more questions, you know, talk about limiting beliefs and being able to find that part in your brain where you've always thought you're not enough, and to kick it out saying you are enough, and to know that I am 100% on my path. And, you know, in a sense, like, Iboga is my medicine to work with. So to have that confirmed, to have the confirmation of being initiated into, you know, the Iboga path, going to Gabon, like, I saw it.
Yeah.
She spoke. It was like 100%. Like, you didn't have to think about it. I wasn't even thinking, oh, is this right? You know? And so I went back to my room, and she gave me like an exact date of when I would be going.
Oh my
God. I had that date. I'm like, like, if this comes true.
Wow.
Holy shit. And so.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was like, I know the medicine that you're meant to work with picks you. So I had the opportunity to pick with other medicines, but it didn't necessarily come like with resistance, but not as a easy flow as with the spirit of Iboga.
Wow.
So
I love that.
For me, I was like, I found my girl.
You found it. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That makes my heart smile, man, because you're right. The medicine will first of all call to you, but it'll also choose you. And I could not be more thrilled, because Morgan's going to pitch into the fight here at No Fallen Heroes. I mean, she's a life coach. Now well, everybody's a healer, but you're a no shit healer. And I'm so glad you found your medicine. Our Nicole, she went to Gabon and got initiated into a tribe. So you guys need to talk and get some lessons learned, because I'd love to be a part of that. I'd love to support in everything you're doing. And I love you putting down the ladder to help other veterans, first responders, family members as well.
Yeah, anything that can help. Yeah, Nicole and I talked, and she's like so excited. And she's like, I think she even mentioned that, her and I kind of have this similar experience with our best friend.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
The moment that I was talking to my best friend, she said I had to step outside and go to the fire because I was having my own encounter with my best friend came to me. So it was really kind of interesting to see how we were on like parallel paths and being able to talk to her about the upcoming and what she did on her initiation. But
I love that.
Even to be able to go and facilitate at Awaken Your Soul, which, it's a possibility in 2025 when they bring in more facilitators and go and volunteer next year. Like that opportunity presented itself. And so I was like,
oh, that's fantastic. Oh, good. Awesome. Well, you know me, Morgan, our mission, I love going to Awaken. I love Anthony and Troy and Joe, and I love the Mission Within and Ambio and Mexico, but man, let's start giddy up and start healing some heroes at home as well too. When I'm heading out to the MAPS convention next week in Denver, and I'm going to sit with a former NHL player that has a ranch in Colorado. It's legal in Colorado now, right? So, and Dan Crenshaw and Morgan Luttrell, some of the Navy SEAL guys in Congress, were advancing some legislation forward today to get some, Pentagon and stuff. So we're getting there, right? You and I, this is the leading edge. We're in it. This is,
time, man.
It is.
That was like one of my things too, was when I went through FitOps, which was the personal training certification for veterans. I was like, man, they call themselves grunts, but the damage that I saw, that I knew that was there, but the damage that I saw these veterans in, and I said, I just looked at them. I was like, you can have all this fitness training all you want, but there is a emotional, there is a mind, and there is a soul disconnect, because there is an unwavering confliction of their morality of having to go over there and do the things out of survival. And this isn't enough. And so I remember sitting at the table on a veterans parade, looking at my friend Randy, like, I'm going to do something big. I don't know what it is. Cannabis isn't going to cut it. Yeah. MDMA is going to be okay. Yeah. But it's not going to alleviate and connect people back to their soul and, and those little pieces of fragments that are missing. I told you, I was like, anything that I can do to help, especially like, because veterans, I mean, it's just been who I am in my entire life. It's just one of the things that I give my life for. So
I love it.
I mean, it's there. And
awesome.
If the government's not going to support them on the aftercare,
and
it's going to take forever, it's people like you and I, that are able to provide that platform and that experience and that education to be like, try this. We have this option.
Correct.
We have this option.
Yeah.
And these options work for people, and, potentially have it work for you.
The red or the blue pill, man. And unfortunately, the VA, the DOD, speaking of pills, it's all about big pharma and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, you see how they just, oh, well, here's this, and we talked about, we don't give our soldiers enough R&R. We don't do it properly.
Correct.
When tribes come back from war, they spend 2 weeks and they do their own medicine ceremony to reconnect those lost souls back.
Exactly. It's a soul retrieval. You got to bring them back, man.
We don't do that. We're just like, oh, here's 2 weeks of R&R. Here's some naproxen. Here's some opiates for your pain. That's going to be chronic your whole life, because we're not finding those pieces and bringing them back in and physically having these people say it's okay to bring that emotion back in, especially when you're brainwashed to shoot, maim.
Exactly. Well, and in a culture of what? Alcohol, right? Here's 2 weeks R&R, and you go drink yourself to death with your buddies and break shit and get pulled over.
That we have this, it's not really a secret. It's a gift. Like, these medicines are popping up as gifts, and to be like, how do we give these gifts to these people that truly need it? Because it not just affects them.
Correct.
They go home, they have those flashbacks, and now it affects their family. Their children, so this is a generational like thing that we need to heal.
Or God forbid they take their own life, and then, as you know, that's a hand grenade. Somebody taking their own life is a generational hand grenade, and the fragmentation pattern is a horror. And we gotta bring that number down to zero, whether it's 22, 44, you fill in the blank. One veteran or taking their.
At least reaching that hand and saying, this is here.
Correct.
Like, even if you're on your last doorstep, do this for free.
Healing is possible. And as you start helping us and your fellow veterans, you're going to get that type of feedback. I got texts, I got emails or phone calls. If I'm not on a retreat and you're like, Whiz, don't want to kill myself anymore. I'm like, oh my God, to even just get that text or email or a message, and it's like, I can't even believe I ever thought about doing that. So please, if you're listening, healing is possible. There's a way out. Morgan and I have both had our dark nights of the soul, and we are completely different people. You look different. You look great.
Yeah, thank you.
This is fantastic. So, Morgan, thank you for spending some time. Obviously going to have you back because this is just fantastic, and love everything you're doing. How can people, if they got questions, what's your Instagram? How can people get a hold of you? I know you do your coaching, your workout stuff. Let everybody know how we can follow you or check you out.
So my website right now is m2breakthrough.com. So you can go in there and you can email me. It's under construction as I learn how to do the technological side, which I have zero. Look, I'm a hands-on.
You got it.
I like to get in the gritty. I don't want to be on the computer side.
Yeah.
But you can reach me on that. My Instagram is Morgan_Madonna_, and you can find me at Morgan Madonna on Facebook too. Just reach out. Mm-hmm. If I can't help you, I know somebody that can. And the fact that you're reaching out just shows that you want to stay here with us, and that's important, whether that you're just staying here for yourself or you're staying here for your family. I don't know why you're staying here, just stay here. Yeah. Because your purpose is a lot greater than you can see. And that's what we do, is connect people back to their purpose, to give them that sense of living. So
I love that.
God, we are here. I promise you.
Wow. So beautiful. That was awesome. She put it right through the bullseye, folks. Healing is possible, and we will connect that mind, body, and soul back together. Because as you know, a lot of bros and sisters get that moral injury, and it's just that disconnect is hurtful, and this medicine potentially can reconnect all of those things. So, Morgan, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Check out Morgan Madonna on Instagram or Facebook, or check out her website, and you will be hearing a lot more from her. We're going to get her on board, the No Fallen Heroes Foundation, her, Nicole. We just have an incredible stable of people. If you or somebody needs and a grant, needs a potential healing grant, please reach out. NoFallenHeroes.com, NoFallenHeroesFoundation.org, or shoot me an email, whiz@NoFallenHeroes.com, and we'll take care of you. So thanks again, Morgan, for coming. I'm so proud of you. I look forward to hearing more from you. God bless you and your beautiful boy. Everything good with your boy? Everything's good?
Oh, yeah. Look, he graduated.
Aw.
Milestone down.
Check.
Yeah, but again, thanks for having me. It's such an honor to be
good.
in the presence of somebody doing such fabulous work. So thank you.
You bet.
Thank you for the work that you do and that we're about to do and we continue to do, and all the lives that we can touch. So
this is our mission. Morgan. Failure is not an option. Lead, follower, get out of the way, folks. So, all right, folks. I'm going to miss you next week. We're heading out to the MAPS convention out in Denver. If you're going to be at that convention, 10,000 people registered so far for the largest psychedelic gathering probably since Woodstock. It's going to be veterans, first responders, politicians, doctors, scientists. Make sure you stop by. I'm going to be at the Healing REIT booth. Healing, it's the real estate investment trust. We're going to have a little No Fallen Heroes banner, but we're sponsoring the dinner Thursday night, the Veterans Dinner. So if you're in Denver, you're a veteran, or you're coming to this conference, please come to our dinner Thursday night. We're also going to be showing a little bit of a clip that you'll see Ms. Madonna featured in. She doesn't know that yet. I'll send it to her later. Maybe. But all right, folks, have a great rest of your day. Happy hunting. Make sure you hedge. Fights on. Namaste, basi basi, and yow yow.